Welcome to the Woman and Money Empowerment Show. My name is Yulin Lee, and I am your host. In these episodes, you will hear my heart-to-heart conversations with women from all walks of life, sharing their wisdom and their journey to success. I hope through these stories, you will find inspirations and affirmation that ordinary people like you and me, we can achieve extraordinary results and live an extraordinary life. Now, let's dive into today's show. Welcome, Bonnie. I am so happy that you're on my show today. And I just want to say that when I heard your story a few weeks ago or last month at a conference, it really hit home for me. And that's the reason why I'm having you on my show, because I think a lot of us can relate to that, both the struggle side, but then also how can we get ourselves out of a situation that we may not be completely happy with. And so thank you so much again for coming on the show and chatting with me today. And in a few minutes, I am going to have you do an introduction of yourself to the audience and tell people what you do. But before that, I just want to say that, again, going back to the story, which really made a deep impression on me, that when I reflect on myself as a parent, as a mother, I think, we all have those moments where we're just not fully present with our kids. And, we may not think of it too much, but at the same time, those moments could cause trauma or unhappy feelings for our kids completely unintentionally. And as a money coach, I also observed very clearly throughout the years that, our money behavior is also a reflection of how we grew up. So when I have these coaching sessions with my clients, we can almost always trace back to something that happened in their childhood that caused them to have a certain key decision. And then that became their belief system. And then they carry that around in their adulthood. And then so the spiral, you can see how things can just build up and gets worse and worse over time. And so every time when I hear these stories from my clients, I always look back and question myself, did I screw up my kids? Or how did I screw up my kids, right? Because, I again, we're not God. And as I tell my kids too, like, I'm not God, I'm human. I make mistakes. And sometimes, we make mistakes intentionally, and sometimes they're not intentional. So it's always important to have that grace for ourselves to know that whatever happened is in the past, but we can always make a different choice going forward. And so, and that's also, like the key message for this show is to remind people that most of us are ordinary people. We're humans, but we can also still achieve extraordinary results and live an extraordinary life. So, when I heard your story, I thought, man, that she completely exemplifies that, the concept that I have in my head and for this show. So I was like, I reached out and said, I really want her to be my show. So I'm going to stop here and then just have you maybe tell our audience simply, and what do you do, and then we'll dive into your story.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. And I love the feedback that the conference was well received. The speaking there was well received. As you said, I'm Bonnie Surie, and I'm a breakthrough coach, and I have the really awesome opportunity of just working with women, all walks of life, helping them to restore their relationship with themselves so they can have greater vitality, peace of mind, and have a greater quality of life. And I do that through, the personal, private, one-on-one coaching, or I do this through the speaking capacity, as you were able to see and experience on your own. And course, it all started because of the story. Is now a good time to just kind of jump into that?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So in 2015, or I'm sorry, 2010, 2015 is when I started coaching. But in 2010, I had my sudden moment of realization. And I had three kiddos, all under the age of 5. My husband, my kids, and I lived it with my parents in their basement. We relied heavily on the state for food and medical assistance. And, we went temp job to temp job. And I was just really incredibly unhappy with myself and with my life and just everything at that time. And I had this incredible opportunity, like this great, huge, wonderful sign from the universe that was so big, bold, and unmissable. And it was given the opportunity to be recorded all of Easter morning. I had no idea we were being recorded until later that afternoon when my 4-year-old daughter ran over to me and she was saying, "Hey, you're on Grandpa's TV, come see." And I turned and I pulled my arm and I was like, I have chores to do, things to do. And I'm thinking of the laundry and more dishes and probably vacuuming for the 12th time that day, whatever. And she just started crying. And I was like, I think I just stopped crying. So I went and I sat down on the couch next to her, put her up on my lap. And I looked straight ahead, and to my left was my stepfather sitting next to me. And he had my 2 other kiddos on his lap, and he had his tablet, also known as Grandpa's TV. And he was replaying all of Easter morning that had been recorded, and I had no idea about. And I'm thinking, I'm like, gosh, I really don't care to be watching this. I don't care about this. I don't want to see myself on this tablet. But then I started like catching glimpses out of the corner of my eye. And I wasn't really impressed with what I was seeing. And it was as though I like somebody grabbed my face and pulled me toward that tablet and was like, "You're watching this." And so what I saw happen was me standing at the kitchen sink. My back was to the rest of the kitchen and to my family. And I was just doing this few dishes in the sink. I was like slamming cupboards and throwing just a few dishes around, but I was obviously unhappy. My three kiddos and my mom were on the kitchen floor playing jacks. And my stepdad and my husband were in the back corner by the Easter table, eating up all the goodies and just talking. And my same 4-year-old daughter jumped up off the floor. She ran over to the Easter table and she started picking up Easter eggs. And she'd look at them and she'd put it down, pick up another one, look at it, put it down. And then she reached across the table. She grabbed this egg and she looked at it and she just lit up. She was so excited. And she runs up behind me. She's got the egg in both hands and she's got outreach to me. And she's, "Mommy, I made this for you." And she's just dancing and just so excited to share it with me. And she's saying it over and over and over again. "Mommy, I made this for you." Well, I'm ignoring her and she gets tired of that. So she yells at me, "Me, I made this for you." And I turn around, I smack the egg out of her hand and I yell, I don't want it." And I turn back around. Egg hits the oven door, it hits the ground and just bursts. And my 4-year-old daughter, she looked down at the pieces and I watched her look up to me. And she looked down again and you could see her just crumble, just like that egg had. And she picked up the pieces to this egg and she held them in her hand and she kissed it. And she whispered something to this egg. And I'm listening and I was like, what did she just say? And I'm trying to turn the volume up on this tablet. And what did she say? And I needed to know. And as she turned to walk out of the kitchen, she said, "It's okay. Grammy says Mommy loves me." And in that moment, I was just like, "But wait, Grammy says, Grammy says Mommy loves me." Like, when was the last time I told my kids I love them? When was the last time I did the fun things with them? When was the last time I was with my kids? And I couldn't remember. So I was so stuck in this internal dialogue in my own story of my past and everything I thought of me of my constant reminders and failures of shortcomings and things I wish I could have done and didn't do, and who I thought I needed to be. I was just so stuck in that inside pain and everything that was going on. I was missing everything. I was missing everything. And so I knew in that moment I have a decision to make. And I had 4 decisions come to mind immediately because they were things I thought about before. I could go to the store and literally run away and just go start life somewhere else, and just try to start over again. I could, I could kill myself. That wasn't a common thought for me at that time. I could stay the same and just, keep waiting. I could wait for things to change. Things will change with the job and with life and the living situations, and then I'll be happy. Things will surely be happy if I just wait. I'm not being patient enough. Or I could change. Now, I knew that that's what I ultimately wanted, but I honestly didn't know was possible for me. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to start. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't even know what it would really mean, but I knew that I wanted happiness. So I made the decision that I was going to find happiness, and I made the decision that I was going to change. And that's what really tipped me into the trajectory of rebuilding my relationship with myself and discovering, the freely me journey, if you will.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, when the first time I heard the story, it really touched me. Like I said, because we all have had those moments, and as parents, when we look back, we may have regrets, we may have shame, or whatever we may be experiencing afterwards. But I'm also one who, for me, it's a little bit easier to look forward and say, okay, it is what it is now, but what can we do going forward? And which is what you mentioned, is you've actually made a decision to make a
Yes.
change. And I think, and that's, what, one of the steps in my book of Unleashed that I, recently published, about how you going to unleash yourself, and unleash your potential and really make that major shift in life. It begins with making that decision that you actually want the change. And that decision has to be bigger than any other excuses or, things for why, they're in the way, they're all of those excuses. And so could you share, so what was the process for you to, once you made the decision, what actually happened to, for you, and to really propelling yourself into a completely different space?
Yeah. So I called my dad, and I told him, I was just like, Dad, I thought that, all the things that I had done in life, I was told just to smile and you'd be happy, and don't complain and you'd be happy, and make sure your kids are taken care of and you'll be happy. And I had lost, 150 pounds, half my body weight, because I believed that if I lost weight, then I would be happy. And then I had that moment, I just wasn't happy. I was just, "Yeah, what do I do? Am I fixable? What do I do? How do I change?" And you know what? He said something, and it to me to the core. And I thought, "You really hear what I just said?" He said, "Let me read to you 15 minutes a day. I'll call you every morning and I'll just read to you from one of my books. I've got some books on personal development and self-help, and I'll just read to you." And I thought, "Are you sure you want to read to me? Did you just hear what I said, Dad?" The truth was, I had nothing left to try. I had just made the decision that I was so done tolerating. I was so done having those excuses. I was so done just feeling like I was the example or the reminder to other people why they wanted to keep doing good in life, or else they're gonna, look like me. And so the only option I did have was just to be willing. And so I did. I started listening every morning. Dad would call me and I would listen for 15 minutes while he read to me. And it absolutely started shifting me in a way that I hadn't even ever considered or expected or believed that it would. But what it did was it helped me open my perspective because I was so attached. I was so attached to the stories that I was telling myself that I convinced myself that that was the true thing about me. That was the true thing about what I was capable of. That was the true. All of it was true. And I had just kept myself so wrapped around that story. But as dad read to me every morning, I got more and more excited to hear what he was going to say because these new ideas really challenged my current beliefs. And I thought, well, what if that was possible? And so as a result of getting my dad would have been my mentor or coach at that time, and then him sharing content or material or resources with me that began really shifting the way that I heard information and changed the information I was taking in. It just, I got really excited about the way that it was making me feel. And I was totally willing to show up over and over and over again. And one of the hardest things I did when I decided, okay, I remember it being like during the day after one of my dad's calls, and I was trying to challenge one of the things that he had read. And it was something along the lines of, the eyes being the window to the soul. And so I went into my mirror and I was looking at myself. Oh my goodness, I was so uncomfortable looking at the mirror in my eyes. And I couldn't keep them open. I was like almost ashamed. I felt ashamed. I felt bashful, embarrassed, like awkward. And I closed my eyes and I said, I just want to find something in the mirror where I can be grateful for me. And I wanted to be able to open my eyes. I think I was just genuinely so uncomfortable with it. And suddenly it was as though I felt my heartbeat in a way I had never felt it before. It was so strong. And I was like, yes, that's it. That's it. And so I started doing that every day, going to the mirror and, trying to keep my eyes open and trying to find something that I could be grateful for about me in that moment that was good enough. And that really shifted everything. So yeah, I got the coach, I got the mentor, I started getting new information that really just challenged my current belief systems. And then I started becoming really excited about it. And I liked the feeling of excitement. So I just leaned into it full force. And that's really what started the journey. Those were the first steps, is that mentor and the informational change for sure.
Yeah, well, what a beautiful story. So I'm curious, how did you think or did you decide to call your dad? I mean, sounds like he's an angel, like he's your angel. But how at that moment, how did you think of to call him? He's the one that you picked.
Yeah. So dad always listened to talking tapes. I hated the talking tapes when I was little. And by talking tapes, I mean, we get in the car and the first thing he does is he pushes that cassette tape into the car. And I'm like, oh, these darn talking tapes. Um, and dad talked about, dreams differently. Mom was a nourisher, right? She really comforted, she really nourished, and she just gave that unconditional love. And I'm lucky, I believe, because I'm a beautiful family who believes in me so, so much. And we have a really strong family. But dad was he talked about dreams. He talked about, seeing life differently. And I never resonated with it. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't like it. But in that moment, I knew that I needed a different type of support system. My stepfather, one of my very favorite people, super supportive, really great, really wonderful, and great leader, great person. My mom, wonderful, love her. My siblings, I love them. I needed a different approach. It couldn't be the same environment. It couldn't be the same thing that I had been doing with the same people. I needed somebody outside of me, outside of the home, to really be able to give me the support that I needed. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I didn't, I've never actually thought about that, why I decided to call that. But just saying, like when you asked me the question, I was like, well, thugs, the talking tips, and that always talked about dreams and different and ambition. And that's what I realized that I wanted. I wanted the happiness and I wanted a more full experience of life.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. And I think what you said is it's really a testament to that you were leaning into your intuition.
Oh, yeah.
Actually had the intuition for where you need to lean into, what you needed as a support. And I think that's also very important to highlight because, for most of us, and especially when we're in kind of in a down state, we feel stuck and whatever belief systems we have and doubts about ourselves. Sometimes we may find ourselves that we want to get help, but we don't know where to get help. And I think you just, give another perfect example of how you really tapped into your intuition to know where to go get help. Right. And that's just so beautiful.
And just to go along with that, I believe that we actually do know somebody outside of our little friend group, family group, who could help us. But there's this challenge that comes from the vulnerability of
Mhm.
saying, I need help, or I'm not really great at this, or these are the challenges I'm having. But I can tell you, like, once you open up that space of vulnerability and to really be willing to admit that I'm uncomfortable with something about my life, and because it's uncomfortable, I've been avoiding and trying to escape it and run from it, and it's still following me. So now I have to come and address it. I don't know how to do that on my own. So instead of avoiding or escape it, can you help me with this?
Right.
And it's powerful. We've been like, it's disempowering, right? Or you're weak if you ask for help, but it's so empowering to gain new information, to be brave enough even to go on that shift of possibility. What's possible for me when I actually do have somebody to work with to support me in this?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, since my show is about money, women and money empowerment, and we talked about empowerment a little bit, I would love to hear, number one, what is your definition of success? Now that you've gone through your journey and achieved a certain level of success in your life. So what is your definition of success?
Well, because I'm in the field that I'm in, I read that question and I thought, okay, what is my definition of success? And immediately I thought, success is the ability to move through life with your arm over your own shoulder as your friend and
Mhm,
never abandoning yourself. To
mhm,
me, being able to be your best friend, regardless of what's going on
mhm,
throughout life, I think that is incredibly like rich in success. Like to me,
mhm.
that's success.
Yeah, great. And as I'm listening to you, it also reminds me one of the things that I talk about, with my clients too, is about remembering to have grace
Yes, yes.
ourselves. You know, that goes along with being vulnerable and really kind of opening yourself up. Part of that is remembering to have that grace, and so it just makes it a little bit easier to do.
So much. Yes. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then what about how does money show up for you?
Money shows up for me. Okay, so money didn't always show up for me. And if it did, it showed up and then it disappeared. That was my relationship with money. But I learned that money shows up for me the most consistently and in the greatest ways when I just know what it is I'm wanting, how much I'm wanting, what I'm needing, what I'm working for and towards, what the goal is. And then I do actions. I know that some people in this space get stuck on like the universe and affirmations and do this for me. But I think the part that gets disconnected is the action steps. So it's helpful because now I'm not worried that what I want or need isn't going to show up. Now I'm just acting as though I know it's going to. So I'm acting in belief, in alignment with my desires. My
Mhm.
pores, the windows and doors just open, the roof comes off and it comes in. But you've got to be able to use your body to do the work, saying like, oh, I trust this. Like I know what I need. I'm going to do the work. I'm showing up for it. So
Right.
that's when money comes in the greatest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think I also see a parallel in your story with your daughter when we are, going through our own stress in life or whatever, and we're not being fully present to our kids. And the same thing actually also happened with money.
Yes.
So, when I ask people about how does money show up for you, sometimes people say, oh, money doesn't show up for me, not or not enough or whatever. But
Mhm.
there's a different way of looking at it. And that is money shows up everywhere for us. It's whether we are paying attention to it or not. And when we're not paying attention, we don't see it. We don't see the opportunities.
And
Um,
then when it doesn't show up, it becomes really uncomfortable.
right.
And naturally, we try to avoid or escape the thing that's uncomfortable.
That's
So
right.
we're trying to escape the money.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So it's the thing we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really, really enjoyed our time. I mean, gosh, time goes by so quickly. Um, what parting words would you have for our audience? And if people are interested in connecting with you and learn more about your work, how can they find you?
What parting words do I have? Well, you said it beautifully when you were like, have grace.
Mm.
Um, to me, I would just remind you that life is the journey. There is no end point. There's no real destination. Once you get somewhere, you're going to desire to be somewhere else. So if you could just be your best friend and celebrate those wins with yourself, do it. Do celebrate those wins, regardless how big or small they might be, because life is the journey. Life is the thing. You can find me at my website, thefreelymejourney.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm also on LinkedIn. Um, if there's the speaking at the conference for the woman, or if you're looking for that one-on-one deep dive experience, I've got an incredible program, the Freely Me Journey. And that's also an option. Just reach out.
Great, great. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. I so enjoy our conversation today.
Thank you so much. Me too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Women and Money Empowerment Show. If you ever have doubt for moments about yourself, your capability, or your worthiness, please remember to keep coming back to these stories and lean in. Draw the wisdom and strength from these incredible women and know that you also have what it takes to live a fulfilling life. Until next time, have a fabulous day.